Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, Opie reflects on a tumultuous relationship of 7 years, marked by personal and professional challenges. Despite supporting their spouse through medical school and residency, the discovery of an intimate relationship with a Discord friend leads to a crisis. The spouse confesses to emotional infidelity, but trust is shattered. He grapples with conflicting emotions, torn between anger and a desire to support their struggling partner. The situation worsens when the spouse fails a rotation, triggering concerns for their well-being. He feels isolated, contemplates the impact on their friend group, and seeks advice on navigating the complex situation. Now let's get into the story. I've been married to my wife for 4 years now, and we've been in a relationship for 7. We've been through some really trying times. She was very upset with me early on in the relationship for not having a chosen career path and not moving quickly through college, largely because of the lack of direction. But I did eventually pick a direction: nursing. She, on the other hand, chose medicine, as in being a doctor, knew early on what it would take and moved quickly towards it. She went to medical school. We moved in together. And after a year of me being a stay-at-home husband, doing cooking and cleaning and weekly, sometimes daily sessions of moral support and encouragement during her crippling, panic attacks, deep bouts of depression and feelings of helplessness and isolation, and ultimately succeeding wildly in her first year of medical school, we decided to get married. Second year of medical school, I got into nursing school and had less time for house duty and moral support, but I was still doing many of those tasks. She did even better in school, felt more stable and confident, and we both did great in school. She then started clinical rotations. This involves moving all over the state for months at a time. We talked daily, went weeks without seeing each other. Both continued to do great in school and felt more lonely but strong in our relationship. Then we graduated, she got into residency across the country, and we moved and both started working. At this point, the only friends that we regularly interact with were a group of people we played video games with on Discord. They were close friends and things went great. Initially, we had more time together, and so the relationship got even stronger. We were finally making money and we were paying down her loans. Medical school debt is serious. I started really succeeding at work. I was given a few raises and thus more responsibilities. I became a full-time charge nurse, getting all kinds of overtime and incentives to work more, and I started making a lot more money. So naturally, I put in more hours and my wife was in full support of this. However, she started struggling at work and got more and more depressed and anxious. Our hours didn't match up, and we stopped seeing each other more than a couple of hours a day max, with only a few days a month off of work together. So we planned a vacation together. We decided to go to the country that most of our Discord friends lived in and meet them, and we have a week together like we used to. Another crazy adventure. Then my D-Day hit. Out of nowhere, she sat me down and asked me if it would be okay if she had intimate with one of our Discord friends, the guy that owns the server. I obviously asked where that even came from. I thought she might just want to do it as a novelty because he's a 30-year-old virgin. She told me that she asked him about it, and he said it would only be okay if I agreed to it. Naturally, I wanted to know why that would even come up, so I started digging for more info. She told me that it was her idea, that she had been planning on asking me to, that it would no big deal and that I could say no, and it would be all right. Something about it stunk, and I hinted to her that I thought so. I told her that I didn't want us to mess around with polyamory because I've seen it get messy before every single time I've seen it tried. And because I personally had a history of being cheated on and had very strong emotions involved within having any romantic involvement outside of our relationship, I let her know that even if it was mutually agreed upon by all sides, I would still have a strong negative emotional reaction to it, that it would still really bother me that she even asked. We had this conversation hypothetically at the start of the relationship, and I made it clear that this was off limits. Not to mention, most people tend to develop strong feelings when intimate is involved, and that I suspected that such a request wouldn't be made unless those feelings were already mutually developing. This started the process of me learning exactly how much has been going on behind my back. She told me that she's spending large amounts of time with this guy in Discord, that she confessed most of her fears, problems, and insecurities about work to him, that she started looking forward to talking to him the whole day she was at work, and he occupied her mind most of the time when she was idle or when I was not home. She told me that she did think it was out of control, that she had crossed the line, and that she was sorry. She said she was just looking for an escape from life, and that I was never around anymore, which is true. I'm at work most of the time, and so is she. And she said that she wished she had just started smoking again. All I could manage to think or say was that I was angry at her and at him, and that I would need to think about how I was going to handle it, and that I didn't want things to age. I didn't want to lose my friends or my wife. I told her it was out of the question, and that it would be a deal breaker if it continued, and that I would try to talk to the guy and get things back to normal. She agreed to put a stop to any romantic involvement. We ran out of time to talk, and we had to go to bed so we could get to work in the morning. All we could agree on was that we wanted our relationship to stay healthy, and we would need to discuss this more to facilitate that. I spent the next few days growing increasingly more agitated at my work. She mentioned several times that the guy was talking about polyamory more in Discord and suggested that we read a book about it. I started to notice exactly how much time she spent with him in Discord while I was at work. I was losing my focus, and I have no time to deal with the situation and just couldn't concentrate. I was avoiding Discord at home because the guy was always online, a mom's basement kind of guy. I was just focusing on not exploding at every moment. Finally, I decided to get on her computer and look at her Discord chat with him. I found out that she had been having what amounted to phone intimate with him, that she had said she had to stop, and probably the next day she decided to do it again. I couldn't sleep that night. Not a wink. She was in the middle of rounds. I decided to get out of bed 4 hours early to just tell the guy my feelings over text and ask him specifically to promise to refuse any romantic advances from her if she tried to initiate it, or that I would have to cut contact with him and insist she did the same. He told me he agreed not to seek any romantic activity. I pushed the matter over and over, trying to get him to agree to this. He basically told me that he didn't believe in the ownership of other humans and that we just saw the world differently, and that he thought she and I should seek professional help because the next guy may not be as honorable as him. That was the last time I talked to him. I went to work in a very unsafe state for the people I was supposed to be caring for. Miraculously, everything went fine. She texted me when she got home that she talked to him, and then she asked what happened, so I told her to pull up my Discord and read it. She really didn't like what he had to say. This was the last time she talked to him since I told her we needed to both cut contact with him, and she agreed. I also told her I knew that more had been going on and I wanted her to tell me. She just started crying and said she didn't want me to hate her forever. She did seem extremely remorseful. I tried to reassure her that I was just as committed to making it work if she would just be honest with me and make some promises. She said she couldn't be totally honest about everything yet, but promised she would do anything to make me feel more trust. Then she changed the subject, her feeling like a complete and utter failure at everything. The conversation turned to her work, and she got tired and went to bed. The next day, she was told she had failed her pediatrics rotation and would need to repeat it. This sent her over the edge. I've never seen her so low. I was worried she might try to kill herself. She asked me to call into work, which I did, and I spent the day just trying to make the world seem better for her. Long talks, waffles at dinner, and a Star Trek marathon. This part just now happened. Now she's asleep, and the reality of my life is coming back. She cheated on me. Immediately after agreeing to stop doing so again, I'm severed from my friend group, maybe forever. I don't want to tell my friends and family about it because I don't want them to hate her. And I don't want to push the matter with her because I'm afraid I'll push her over the edge when she's at her weakest. I'm just lost and looking for some way to vent everything. Any thoughts at all are welcome. I obviously want to make it work. I have major trust issues now, and I'm torn between being raging angry and wanting to help support her through this low point. Today's second story. In this story, Opie plans a surprise birthday party for his wife but discovers her infidelity on the eve of the celebration. Maintaining composure, he reveals the affair during the party using a projector and divorces her. The confrontation results in her public humiliation, job loss, and eviction. Despite her pleas, he prioritizes their son's well-being, vowing to move forward without her. He seeks a positive future for himself and his child while severing ties with his unfaithful ex-wife. Now let's get into the story. The very next day was my wife's surprise birthday party. I was excited because I actually succeeded at planning a surprise party for her. She said she never had one because she always accidentally discovered the plans for it. I guess the last time her parents tried to throw her one was when she was 16. She was turning 27 now, and I was 25. I stayed at home with our 4-year-old son while she went to work. I was out running errands for birthday party supplies when I drove through her work parking lot to find her car. My plan was to leave a rose and romantic note on it, giving her instructions to meet me at a specific address at a specific time tomorrow. Of course, she was going to come home to me after work and ask me about the note, but it was the spontaneous surprise I aimed for. I circled the parking lot quite a bit before I caught a glimpse of her car in the very corner of the parking lot on the backside of the building. I got close enough to it to see movement inside. That was very weird. So I parked my car as close as I could to hers and zoomed in on my phone's camera. I started recording the movement in the car and caught multiple glimpses of her topless with another man. I couldn't believe she was doing this. They were having intimate in the company parking lot. I looked around for any security cameras and noticed they were all just out of range from my wife's car. She parked there intentionally. How many times had she done this? I felt like I was going insane, but our son was with me in the back seat of my car. I had to play it cool, stay strong, and go home to come up with a plan. At home, I typed out a text to the surprise party guest list. This guest included all of our friends and family. Surprisingly, none of my wife's coworkers. She probably intended to keep family lives separate from work life for a reason. The text explained that I discovered only today, the day before the party, that my wife was having an affair. The party would go on, but instead of yelling, we would yell something else. Instead of the other activities I had planned, we would do something else. Everyone was very sympathetic to me and agreed to do as I said. Even my wife's mom called me to apologize on her daughter's behalf and say I didn't deserve this betrayal and pain. I broke down crying on the phone with her. When my wife arrived home, I pretended everything was fine. It was really hard to do, but I knew tomorrow was going to be everything I needed it to be. The next morning, I spoke to my lawyer and picked up divorce papers. Then I arranged with the venue to be able to use their video projector. I went back to my wife's work and put the note on her car without the rose. She didn't deserve a rose. Then I got back home and waited. As anxious and sad as I was, I knew the end of my marriage was not the end of the world, especially if she was the cheating horse she proved herself to be. My wife confirmed she got the note by texting me. I took our son to my mom's house and gave him a hug. The worst thing about divorce was the impact it would have on him. When I arrived at the venue, guests were arriving and apologizing to me. They'd assured me they would do anything to help support me through this heartbreak. We got everything set up so it would be one hell of a show. When my wife walked in, the lights went out and we held our breath. As soon as she walked in, the lights came on and everyone jumped out yelling, "Hey, cheater." I allowed a few moments of awkward silence while my wife's brain processed that everyone just called her a cheater. She looked offended, scared, and confused. Then I pushed play on the projector. It showed the video of her car rocking back and forth with glimpses of her topless self. Her jaw dropped and she covered her mouth with her hands. She looked around the room, noticing all her friends and family staring at her in disapproval. The guests decided to leave now, and I thought it was a good time too. I left my wife there. I got home 40 minutes before her. I stole her house key earlier that morning so she wouldn't be able to get in. All of her stuff was on the front porch. She arrived home only to be shocked all over again. She broke down crying again. I spoke to her from the second-story window, telling her she had to get her stuff and leave because she wasn't my wife anymore. She just flipped me off while she cried and called someone 10 minutes later. It looked like the man she cheated with was helping her take her stuff somewhere. To his house, maybe. I knew who my wife's boss was, so I emailed him the video I caught. The next morning, I got a reply. He was able to use security cameras to identify who walked to and from the car with my wife, and they would both be fired immediately. Of course, it didn't take long before my wife called me. She cussed me out and called me names, but that didn't bother me. I knew she was going to realize just how badly she messed up. All through the time of the divorce and afterward, she begged and pleaded with me to stop changing our lives. Eventually, I stopped responding to her because she knew she did this to us. I haven't heard from her in a while. My main focus will always be my son. I have hope that I'll find a good woman for me and a good mother figure for him.